So the main topics that the bear research group here at the University of Cumbria look at focus around behaviour of bears, particularly the behaviour of bears in response to human disturbance. That can either be disturbance through ecotourism or disturbance through habitat modifications, so forestry impacts on habitat, tourism impacts on habitat. One of the tools we have used in the past is satellite telemetry, where we have fitted bears with collars which have a GPS unit and a satellite phone. Those bears then send emails with a record of their locations, so you can track their movement in the habitat and their use of habitat across a period of 1 to 2 years from your office here in Cumbria while they roam around the backcountry of British Columbia. Here we have the annual movements of 6 different bears. The different coloured lines represent different animals moving through the habitat, and you can see there's a concentration of activity in this region, and this is an area where there's a lot of ecotourism, so an important area for the bears, also an important area for ecotourism. That's why it's really important to know about the impacts the tourism has on the bears, because their most important space in the landscape is also the most important site for viewing. At other times of years, the bears move away from the salmon rivers and up into the higher elevation regions. You can see on the tracks of their movement clusters of activity that centre around particular points. Those points in the landscape are particular locations that are of importance to the bears. We can then use satellite imagery to look at habitats at those places, and we find that the bears are using edge habitats for foraging. In late summer, edges of forests have berry growth, bears are eating berries, and we can see through the movement data that we have that bears are using both natural edges on lake shores, on the sides of landslips, but they're also using man-made edges at the edges of forestry cut blocks. So in this image you can see a den site that we identified. All of the den sites in the study were on high elevation, steep slopes in old growth forests, so areas that hadn't been harvested. The question that remains is, do bears like to den in old growth forest, or do bears like to den high up on steep slopes which are difficult to harvest, and so the forest remains. A number of years ago, we started using camera traps to try and access behavioural data without having to be present all the time watching the bears. So the first project that we applied that camera trapping to was some work that I did looking at the use of rub trees during breeding season by the bears in Night Inlet. We saw some really interesting features in that initial study, in that there were sex biases in the bears using the trees. It was a short-term study, so it probably raised more questions than it answered, and that has led on to the project that Melanie's working on now.
For my PhD, I'm looking at how grizzly bears communicate with each other. So grizzlies use scent communication, and they use their sense of smell to communicate. Now, the way that animals communicate has been documented in lots of other species, but not so much for species which use a sense of smell. So that's one thing I'm really interested in, particularly because bears rely so much on the sense of smell to gather food, and we also think that it's really important for them to communicate with each other. And this could be for a number of different things. It could be to attract females, so males may be able to smell when females are ready to mate, so it may help them come together during the breeding season. Or it may also be to formulate a kind of social structure, so a dominance hierarchy within the population. We're looking at whether bears choose specific trees, so is it the species of the tree, is it the size of the tree, or is it the location of the tree that makes it important for marking. But one of the other elements of my project is we're also looking at which bears are the ones that are actually communicating. So is it adult males, is it females with cubs, or is it subadults? And I'm looking at this in different seasons, so during the breeding season and outside of the breeding season. So this is providing us with evidence of what bears are actually trying to communicate by marking on these trees. Another thing that I'm looking at is what bears actually do when they're at the tree. So there's lots of specific postures that they do. They rub their backs on trees, they rub their sides, their flanks, their face. And so we're looking at possible reasons for why using these different postures, and also the amount of time that bears spend at trees and indulging in this kind of marking behaviour. Altogether, this can provide us with a bigger picture of what's actually being communicated. It's only by the use of the camera traps that we're actually able to collect this data. So you could put barbed wire around trees and collect hair, so you could monitor which bears actually rub on trees by doing DNA analysis. But you wouldn't actually also be able to study which bears investigate trees or which bears choose not to mark on trees. So it's with the use of these camera traps that we're actually able to gain a more broader picture of what's going on in the population, how they are communicating. And with the use of multiple camera traps, we're able to study a much larger area and increase our sample size and include a lot more different individuals within the population and get a much better picture of what's going on. This photograph was actually commended in a competition. It was a BBC Wildlife magazine camera trap competition. It shows a young cub in the background marking on a tree, and this is its mother in front of the camera. It's a really nice kind of portrait of a bear. It shows them doing unusual behaviour, and they also pointed out that they really liked the paw. So this picture was also commended under the animal portraits category, and this picture shows an adult male lying by a marking tree. So people are used to seeing pictures of bears, you know, in aggressive poses, but I think this really shows an aspect of bear behaviour that we don't always get to see.
The research that I initially did looking at behavioural and energetic impacts of ecotourism, I was the first to document a positive impact of tourism for the animals being viewed. From that, we've learned lessons about how to manage tourism to benefit or have a beneficial impact on populations of bears. Recently, we've been working with the Kitchin Nation, a First Nations community on the mid-coast of British Columbia, to develop a project to help new ecotourism operations that they're establishing, looking at commodity bears or spirit bears, which are a white form of black bear that lives on the coast of British Columbia. So we're taking lessons learned from brown bear ecotourism and looking at applying those to best management practices for the bear viewing that's being conducted in other parts of the coast. It's an important new development for us, working with the community in Clem 2.
In the summer of 2011, I spent 3 months in Clem 2, which is on the central coast of British Columbia in Canada. While I was there, I was beginning a research program where we're looking at interactions between brown bears and black bears that are found on the coast there. During the 2011 season, we were able to collect some fantastic imagery of species across the territory. This includes spirit bears, black bears, grizzly bears, cougar, wolverines, wolves, porcupines, eagles. This enables us to firstly look at where individual species are around the territory. So, are there brown bears moving onto the islands? Is this having any impacts on the black bears and the spirit bears that are found there? And coupled with this, we can look at when people are present too, and whether the presence of people has any impact on the movement patterns of the black bears. We estimate that there's between 300 and 400 spirit bears left in the wild, and there's none found in captivity. So it's really important to protect and to conserve this territory, especially with these bears present.